Greetings all and sundry.
Lucci.
Welcome to the Brain Software Podcast, coming at you from the hypnotic world epicenter, Toronto, Canada.
Lucci.
This is episode 264, and I'm Chris Thompson.
Lucci.
Today, Mike Mandel and I talk about fixing relationships and severing toxic ones too. So stay tuned. And here's your disclaimer.
Disclaimer. Bullpens have ballpoints. Sounds just fine to me. How about you? Will you really stay tuned, Dr. Ambrose? Will you stay tuned at all?
Yeah, Croaker Sack. I'll stay tuned, all right. But whatever happened to that old quantum entanglement tranquility we used to experience whenever we attempted to memorize the periodic table, Scro? That's what I want to know.
Can you really stop us? Can you stop us at all? So welcome to the Situation Room, the mannish boy who could neck crank Bernheim and Braid without any effort whatsoever.
True.
Or any reason to do so.
Correct.
The man who invented the phrase breaker balzay because he's the Keith Jarrett of hypnosis.
Not who you thought.
Mike Mandel.
So I said to His Excellency Mike Mandel, no, you skipped that, you back.
I did skip it. Yeah,
All right.
I
We'll
realized that
pretend
I
you
had
said
a little...
I said it about myself
I
anyway.
had a little fluff in my delivery there, so I decided to cut that out just to catch up and just keep us on track. So,
We're talking about
is that okay?
He was suffering from fluff in his delivery.
all right, let's start.
What's that?
Today's podcast,
Yeah.
this episode, is going to be about relationship stuff. It's comes from the heart. I think it's going to be a very useful episode with some good content in there for you. But before we do that, let's just remind you, join our hypnosis and entrepreneurship and personal development community. It's called Brain Software, because it comes after the podcast. It's free, and you can get there by going to MikeMandelHypnosis.com/free group. All one word.
Awesome, man.
All right, think tank
That's good.
words.
Just before we get to think tank words, I just want to point out, I cut my hair yesterday. I'm doing it a new way. The 1.5 that my wife wants me to use, I find it a bit too long. So I did 1.5, but I did 1 on the sides here. So is it mostly blended?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my only aside.
I thought you were asking them.
No, I'm looking at myself.
Gary, I think we were live.
Let's talk about the think tank words. These are
All
the
right.
words that we have randomly generated, or we didn't generate them. They were done in a random noun generator online because I'm at our cabin. And these 3 words we must link to the current situation, to what we're speaking of, and see if we can tie it all together and then naturally
I
Dracularize them.
love this.
The
Okay.
3 words are, read 3 of them for us, Chris.
Memory,
Wow.
profession, and presence, which is not absence.
Okay, well, let's
And
think
also
about
not present.
presence.
not
So what do
gifts.
you think when you hear memory?
When I hear memory, I think, well, since we're going to be talking about relationships, I think memory as everyone associates to things that have happened in the past or that happened in different situations.
Very good.
So we have memories of these things and we carry all that with us into every interaction.
Oh, that's very
right.
good.
So if your memory is that someone was mean to you or whatever, even if they changed and they're not like that anymore, you're likely to come into that situation and feel pissed at them because
hold some sort of
that
resentment.
person used to bully
Yeah.
me back in high school, whatever the case may be. So memory, we carry stuff with us, whether it's good or bad.
That's interesting. And when I think my application of this is memory, when we're dealing with relationships and so on, memory can be one of the hindrances to breaking away from someone who's toxic.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I remember our friend Paul, who's lately been the horrible example in a wide variety of ways, but I just love the guy dearly. I remember he and I used to go on a fishing trip with a bunch of guys. Some of them were great guys like Kenny Upton, Paul, Michael C. Anthony went. And then there were others who
were not
dicks.
so
Yeah,
much.
I'm not going to dick chant them, but well, maybe I will. No, I won't. Anyway, but this was many, many years ago, and we had a good time. But then the relationships became fractured. Paul would desperately try to put it together. We got to have
Because
a fishing
of the
trip
good
again.
memories,
That's right. So
right?
don't let the good
Yeah.
memories hoodwink you into forgetting that if things are toxic now, it's time to fix them or move on, and most
Memories
likely
are
move on.
always about the past.
What about
And
profession?
Yeah, profession. Okay, so what if we were to think about relationships as your job, your profession, your career is to maintain awesome relationships
Oh, that's
in
nice.
your life.
That's nice.
Right? So that might be a nice way to
What
do
came to mind with me right away is I've just wondered how depressed you must feel realizing all your work in your chosen profession as a mechanical engineer and a stock analyst was in vain.
Oh, it all works out wonderfully because there's so much memory here from my past profession.
Lessons learned.
And I can bring that and be present.
As a resource.
Yeah, there we go.
There you
all
go.
right, but
Well done.
let's get on to the next
Present.
word then. Presence. So presence as opposed to absence, right? That's the spelling we're looking at here, not gifts, presents, like Christmas tree. We're looking at presence. And I think that in any relationship, it's about being present. Now, we're going to be getting on to some discussion about long absences from a relationship. So how can you return to being present? And how can you make sure, they call it like mindfulness and all that stuff, right? It's all kind of related in a lot of way.
Be in the moment.
Yeah, be present in the situation.
Now, that's interesting because I read a psychology report about cats the other day, and they said cats have no forward thinking. They think only in the moment they're in right now, and that everything is based on that, which means cats must be pretty laid back, and no wonder they can sleep 22 hours a day.
I imagine dog, like my dog is
No,
like
dogs
that
are
too.
different.
No, they're different? Okay.
It's too busy bringing a toy to one.
That's right.
Now, let's just look at this for a second. We have to Dracularize these.
Okay.
Let's hear memory.
Memory to computer chip to computer chip fried through an electrical thunderbolt to
this is entirely Dursative.
You do a better job.
Do an easy one. Memory. When I think back, my memory is very strong as far as my teenage years. I read a lot in those days. One of the things I read was Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
All right.
What about profession?
Well, profession, assassin, death, Dracula.
I would go profession to professional vampire.
Oh, there we go.
To vampire to Dracula. That's still good. What about presence?
Presence.
Feeling a presence in the room and realizing it's Dracula.
To absence, absence of pulse, to death, to Dracula.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
okay, we're ready.
We go. All right.
So let's get on to some real content here. I want to start with a story that's absolutely true, and this is very personal. I won't drag it out and Ken Sweatman it, but here's the thing. I have a sister 7 years older than me. Love her dearly. And maybe somewhere between 12 and 15 years ago, Chris knows the story, we had a falling out, and to be honest, I can't even remember what it was about. And she can't either. We had a falling out that was so disastrous for her. She's my only sister by birth. I have a stepsister too. But we went almost 15 years and did not see each other. I mean, at all. Mm-hmm. And that was bad because we had a happy childhood together. She's 7 years older than me. And interestingly, there was an attempt. I don't know which of us did it first, but over the last couple of years, we've reconnected through Facebook Messenger, just the odd thing, or a page or something. I guess we were both testing the waters to see if the other person would even respond. And then it got to the point that finally I said to my wife, I want to see her. And we checked, and she wanted to see my wife and I, my sister and her husband. And because they only live an hour and 10 minutes from my cabin.
Easy day trip.
So last weekend, we booked it with them. We drove out there an hour and 10 minutes. And it was the best thing that could possibly have happened because we got through the door and she gave me a big hug and we hugged her husband as well. And she clung to me and said, I have missed you so much. And I said the same thing to her. And I said, it's ironic. Here I am, her 71-year-old baby brother.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's that.
9 years.
Yeah. 7.
Oh, I think you said 9. Sorry.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Let that out.
Man. Okay. So,
anyway,
but still, like when you were 14, she was, sorry, when you were
41, yeah. I was 7, she was 14.
When you were 7, she was 14. That's like a night and day
She looked
difference.
after me when I was a kid, though. But yeah, as we got older, you become more the same. But it was a wonderful thing. She made an amazing lunch for us. Simple but beautiful. She's an excellent cook. I'd taken a bottle of good wine and hung out with her and her husband. They have a beautiful house in Southwest style. And we're there for about 3.5 hours. And then we came back to our cabin. And it was immensely healing, Chris. And here's the thing. And you must notice I'm actually being serious. I'm not yelling Lucci or anything.
Yeah.
So this is a true story. The following day, we had wine with supper, my sister and I, my wife and I, we were just talking about stuff at the cabin. And Sunday nights and Wednesday nights, I permit myself 2 nights a week only, have a little bit of whiskey in the evening. And I poured some. I started sipping it and something happened. I felt deep emotion starting to surface. And I said, I'm getting really emotional here and I don't know why. It's tied to my sister yesterday. And I said, you know what, honey? I said, I don't normally do this. I said, I'm going to pour a bit more of this. Pour another shot of it. And by the time I was halfway through the second one, it unlocked the emotions, as Jordan Peterson says it does. And I started freaking crying. And I said, I got so much regret from not seeing her for all these years, so much sadness. But the overall emotion was a dredging and an immense healing thing. And I actually wrote to her and I said, something immense has happened. I said, something unlocked. And I said, I'm so glad we reconnected. It was an amazing healing thing. And her daughter, who's the naturopath, I told her too, and she was thrilled because we'd reconnected with her and her spouse. When there is a reason to reconnect in all this stuff, when there's a reason to rebuild the bridge, do it if you possibly can, because life is damn short. And I said, my parents and hers, the same parents, they died in their 50s.
Yeah.
And I'm 71, she's 78. And it was the best thing we could do. So that's sort of what made me think in terms of do a podcast on reconciliation.
Right.
And lessons learned.
Okay. Well, I have no stupid jokes to make.
No, I'm really glad because it's very powerful and depressing. So let me ask you, what about reconciliation in your life? Have you had anything like that?
Not really. Not really reconciliation, but more like absences. Remember last year around this time, I hadn't seen my old friends from Ottawa that I spent a lot of time with. And so I drove down and we all went out for a nice meal and it was fabulous. And we've all reconnected via text messages or WhatsApp or FaceTime and things like that. So it's great. But that wasn't where there was any falling out whatsoever.
Yeah.
Although one of the guys, and actually, I kind of miss talking this guy that I used to be friends with way back in the day. And he must have been somehow pissed off at me for something. And I don't really even know what. But one of the guys that was a close group friend of ours in our tight group.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him or heard from him in 15 years or so at least. Yeah. And I've looked him up on Facebook and stuff. I don't think he's present on it. So I was kind of like, that I would love to rekindle. He's a great guy. And for whatever reason, I don't even know.
It's interesting, Chris, because my experience has been that some people's lives change radically and they make almost a break from their past. When I noticed that was going to my high school reunions and you hear about the people who passed away and all of this. And I see Tony Gradini, pick up the chicken, put it in the box, serve the customer. And it was some great stuff. But then I said, what
you
about
said pick up the chicken? It sounded like you said pick up the chicken, put it in the box, and serve it to the customer. This was from your first job, right?
17 years old, $1 an hour, working until 3 a.m.
When someone dropped the chicken on the floor.
He was the cook. But here's the thing. At that high school reunion, I said, what about so-and-so? I won't name any of them. Where's so-and-so? They said, he just never showed up. Like he's no connection with anyone from high school. Doesn't want any connection. He's gone on to be a high-powered lawyer. He's probably retired now, but some people just, something happens, they move on.
They have the memories, but they're not present in them anymore. See how I did that?
Brilliant. Yeah, I like the hand gesture.
Yeah.
It was nice. So the whole thing is when we lose contact with someone like that, there doesn't have to be rancor. It doesn't have to be an actual falling out. Sometimes things just distance over time, as you were saying.
Most natural way that relationships just fizzle out is because, geographical moves, and also people just metaphorically grow apart, right?
Yeah, yes.
Like if I think about my two kids, even my youngest,
they can't stand you.
That is still in high school right now. There are kids that she went through elementary school with that are still in high school, and she still sees them.
Yeah,
but she's just not really close to them anymore. There's no problem. They're cool. They'll talk to each other, but they're not like big parts of each other's lives. Whereas maybe 3-4 years ago, some of these kids were always coming over to the house. Yeah, they were very close.
That's interesting. And when people ghost us, that's extremely painful as well.
Yes,
because being put outside the tribe. But sometimes. Some relationships need work. They do need maintenance. My best friends, him, Michael C. Anthony, Timothy September, Ryan, a few others.
Yeah.
My best friends, we have maintenance-free friendships. I mean, we absolutely do.
Yeah, you don't need that check-in.
If I didn't see you or talk to you in 8 years, it would be unpleasant. But we just pick up where we left off right away. I mean, but some of them are going to require the maintenance. Some friendships are maintenance-free, but never assume they are. It's important in all your current friendships and relationships to bring newness and variety to them, because in any relationship, stagnation is poison. Stagnation is poison. You get the other person starting to say, there's something wrong in my life and I don't know what. You're getting all these frickin' red flags thinking, this person losing interest in me, losing interest in our lives. And
you know what this makes me think of? Back to Tony Robbins, his 6 human needs model. And the first 2 are that you need certainty, but you also need uncertainty. Yeah. And they are yin yang, right? Mm-hmm. Certainty meaning, let's say I have certainty. I have a wife who I can trust 100%. That's certainty. But what about the uncertainty? That's what you just mentioned. the variation, what's new, bringing new hobbies and new conversations and new restaurants and new foods and new adventures.
It brings growth.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about this is, remember we did a podcast years ago about chaos.
Yeah.
Order. And this is the same
that's
thing.
the same thing.
Every relationship needs order. You need some degree of predictability that you're going to come home at night, not you disappear for 2 weeks.
Right.
But you also need chaos. You need enough random stuff to keep life interesting. Oh, let's go see an opera for the first time in our lives. We did that. And I thought I was going to hate it. It turned out to be my favorite art form.
Yeah.
Right? You bring in newness, bring in excitement. Listen to amazing bands like.
Yeah. It's a really nice thing to do. Like new music. What was the band that you told me
I'm just trying to think of the name. Flatland Cavalry.
Flatland Cavalry. Yeah, you texted me the other night. Yeah. So I'm thinking, I don't know what this is going to be, but I'm just going to go. I opened up my Sonos app and I typed it in and I hit.
Brand name.
Oh, there's an Apple Essentials playlist called Flatland Cavalry Essentials, and I play it. And I was like, this is really good.
It's a good band. Yeah.
I like that. But at the same time, I like going back to my old favorites, right? 80s rock music.
Which I was listening to today,
I think I could never grow tired of 80s rock music, but there are going to be times where, I want to listen to something different, something new. So we're always mixing a bit of new and a bit of old. And I think that's really good advice for all relationships.
When you said that, the 80s thing, right away I thought, Nana.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's another thing. For maintenance in any relationship, learn empathy. Now, empathy is not the same as sympathy.
Yeah.
Here's the version I like. It's the one I heard years ago, and it's the one I've stuck to. Sympathy is when you feel bad for someone. You sympathize. Oh, it must be terrible. You've gone through a bad thing. Empathy is second position in NLP.
I can understand.
It's feeling their emotion.
Feel.
Yeah, not understand.
Yeah.
That's sympathy.
Well, I suppose if you understand it,
sympathy is dissociated.
Okay.
Empathy associates into their emotions.
I was thinking more that once you understand it, then you can actually feel it. Like you wouldn't be able to feel it necessarily if it made no sense to you. So it has to make some sense to you to be able to take it on from second position and go, I can feel, I can borrow that feeling from you and feel it.
Yes. And it's funny because second position is imagining you're inside the other person with all their emotions and so on. Derek Balmer, I don't know if I ever told you this. He was doing this drill in his class. Derek was definitely my mentor, my NLP trainer's trainer. And someone was sitting there with a coin. It might have been MCA, vanishing it and stuff. He said, put it in one of your hands. He said, he said, hey, Derek, I can't figure out what hand the coin is in. And he comes over and he goes, it's in his right hand. And he goes, yeah. And he could do this like multiple times. I said, how do you do? He said, you just go to second position. That's all he said. And just walked away. And I went, what?
That's hilarious. So he's just really good at calibrating.
Yes, this is it. Now, what if a once good relationship goes off the rails, it's severed, and you decide you want to fix it? Here's some practical steps. I've done the homework on this for you guys. First of all, focus on clear communication with the other person. Keep the emotions mostly off the table.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, the clear communication means that it can't be clouded by emotions that tend to, at the moment, make us stupider, right? Whether they're good emotions or bad emotions. However you want to label them.
Yes,
so
right. Whether they're useful or not.
Sticking to information more so than emotion.
No, that's good. Stick with the data. Clear communication. Don't talk over the other person. Pause to listen. Don't mind read. You think that you said that he... None of that stuff. It's not up to you to tell the other person what they're thinking. If you were correct, you didn't need to tell them because they already knew.
And if you're incorrect,
there's no point saying it because you're freaking wrong.
Yeah.
Well, be careful. We don't want to do a dick chant. I feel one coming on. Another thing is, and this has taken me years to learn. I'm just saying that so you think I'm not superhuman. But listen without planning your rebuttal.
This is such
how easy it is, especially I've found that guys do this a lot. Wife, spouse, whatever, significant other is making some point, and we're already planning what we're going to say to one. Yeah, but you're forgetting what happened last Saturday. You know what I mean?
I remember when I first heard this so eloquently described. Two friends of mine, Kevin and Adam, they were having a conversation.
Yeah.
And Kevin was listening, but Adam was speaking, and Adam said, You're not really listening. All you're doing is planning what you're going to say next. And Kevin goes, actually, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. Don't plan your rebuttal. Respond to what they say. Not what you think is going to give you the brownie points by scoring points. Offer back their language without interpreting. So if the person says, I've been furious with you for 28 years now, you don't want to say, I understand. You're being miffed, haven't
mildly
you?
upset.
So it didn't say miffed, It didn't say mildly upset. The person says, I've been furious for 28 years. You can
You've been
offer
furious
back and
for
go,
28 years.
Or just say part of it. 28 years. Wow.
Yeah,
and
28 years. That
will
sounds like
build
something
the
we need to
rapport
talk about.
bridge using their own language without interpretation. And don't play the blame game. Mike, why should I even listen to you about this stuff? You're a hypnotist and NLP trainer. Yeah, but I was the relationship guy on CBC television, Stephen and Chris show for 2 freaking seasons. So I come by it honestly because they asked me to be on.
That's
I didn't
right.
go after it.
So you're saying it's all my fault?
I'm saying it's entirely your fault.
The blame game is really worthless.
Bring on
because
the next one.
It doesn't solve any problems, right? All right, let's move on. So asking for clarification if you need it. This is an important one because if you don't ask for clarification, then what you must be doing is mind reading.
Making an
assuming.
assumption. Yep.
You're mind reading. You are pretending to know something that you couldn't possibly know because you didn't freaking ask, right?
Exactly. Another thing here is watch out for the triggers. If you know things will set someone off, if you smirk or something when they're making a point or turn your back and walk away, resist the nuclear weapons always.
Yeah, these are
Keep
things that
down
people
low.
will unconsciously sometimes fire off. They know that if I give the smirk, if I turn my back, if I roll my
Score
eyes,
points, get you mad.
I'm going to show you that I think you're an idiot. Well, that's not going to help a relationship, is it?
No, definitely not. Which leads us to take responsibility for your part in the fractured relationship.
Oh, yeah. I know somebody.
It's always a two-sided thing.
I'm fairly close with somebody who has an impossible time apologizing when something is that person's fault. And it's obvious and everyone knows it. And this person has a real hard time saying, I'm sorry.
Or saying I was wrong even.
Yeah. And
we know one
I'll
can't
tell
even
you,
say thank you.
You know what a freaking superpower is in my mind?
Forgiveness.
Being able to go, you know what? That was totally my fault.
Well,
I
close.
screwed up. I'm really sorry.
Taking responsibility.
Yeah. It's
Do you know
not
who
difficult.
never takes responsibility for anything serious?
Who?
Axl Rose.
Oh, yeah, you told me about
And it
that.
was
Yeah.
Slash
It
who
was in
said
his
it.
book, right?
Slash's
In his
book.
biography.
Just because it's all extreme doesn't mean it didn't really happen. Slash's biography was really good.
That's
but he
hilarious.
said Axl Rose is
Nothing's ever
incapable
his
of
fault.
ever seeing anything. He had any fault in anything.
So we're not inviting him on our podcast?
He's not coming.
All right.
And hello, Axl, if you do ask nicely, we'll get you on.
I mean, he's got his cool moments.
Okay, so look, here's a really good one. I don't know who said this, but generate light, not heat. In other words, look for understanding, look for clarity instead of generating emotional
Light is bright and heat is emotion. I think of heat as emotion. It's this conversation's getting we'll say the conversation's getting heavy or the temperature in this room is too
cool
high.
down.
Yeah, cool it down there.
It's not a grain elevator.
Slow down
Get your
there,
arms
Geronimo.
down.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's totally true. Like actually, to go back to our think tank words, keep it more professional than emotional.
For sure.
Right?
And realize the emotional aspect of this. If you're trying to get back with someone, you're going to have to deal with the crap from the past, even if it's just admit that it's over and done with, like my sister and I did. We didn't bother exploring. We just said, hey, we're both back. We're older now. Let's get on with our lives and be connected and love each other. We didn't have to explore all the freaking issues, and neither do you. But if the person does that and they begin to vent about something that you apparently did, don't interrupt. Let them vent because this will help them unload the emotion. You can even do the steepling as they talk, but not with your fingers up, with your fingers pointed
Reception.
down. That shows that you're receptive, listening.
So
don't interrupt. Let them vent and nod, showing that you're listening.
This is a good point because even though we're saying that you don't want to let your emotions get the best of you and you don't want to be the person who's just venting, etc. I mean, you might need to, and hopefully the other person will let you. But if you're on the receiving end of it and this person needs to vent, you're not, what are you going to do? Destroy the rapport, position yourself as the relation. You know what? Let's keep our emotions in check here. And there's no need for this. We just need the information. No, because now you're putting yourself on this pedestal of I'm the expert and I know better than you do, instead of just going, shut up and listen.
Yeah. When I was a little kid, and you pointed out about my sister and I, 7 years difference when you're a little kid is a lot. When I was about 7, she knew how to push my buttons and get me really mad. Yeah. And when I was really mad, then she'd come, shh. And I, I had tantrums. Tantrums.
Yeah.
Can't see that now. All right. Apologize for your mistakes. And a great way to do it is to apologize about what they're feeling instead of apologizing for what you did. If you don't apologize for what you did, you're not accepting blame. but you're still.
Yeah,
you're
I'm
still
sorry you feel that way.
Oh, here's the one I like.
Classic,
Instead of I'm sorry I said that, I would say, I'm sorry that your feelings were hurt. Now you're sympathizing with the person.
Well, if you did do something that you should apologize for your behavior, that's one thing. But if it was a simple misunderstanding and you don't actually feel sorry for saying what you said,
right.
You're going to say, I'm really sorry that I wasn't clear in how I communicated and it ended up hurting your feelings. That wasn't what I meant for to have happen.
Absolutely. We get a rush here, buddy. Here we go.
Well, we're actually doing okay. But
that's good to hear. Now, listen to use the other person's representational system. If they're saying, I feel, don't say, well, look at this. He said, you saw this. Mm-hmm. Talk in the system they're talking in. If they say, I feel, don't say, I think. Don't say, I see. Say, I feel. Say the same one back, and it'll probably be feelings-based at this point. Feelings are not accusations. Acknowledge them. If people feel wound up and mad and everything, just let it bounce off you, because you can calm things by staying calm and recognize.
And if you acknowledge them by, like you already said, using the same word, right? So if they say that they're pissed off, you don't say, oh, I'm sorry you're annoyed. You say, I hear you. You're pissed off.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's talk about
Brilliant.
it. Right.
And also realize, this is an interesting one. How about being the one who is willing to take the first step to bring reconciliation? And I don't know who did with me or my sister, who invited who or how this all happened, but
it was me. I invited you
to lying bast. But Lucci, the thing is about that I find interesting is I think people sometimes find it difficult to make that first step. But if it's a step to healing, isn't it worth it? I'm not going to make the first step unless he does.
Yeah, what's the reason?
You really want to fix things?
Seem weak or all seem like I want it more. Well, if you don't do it and they're not doing it, ain't going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you want? Do you want the outcome or not? Right?
Be calm and consistent in your response, and find ways when you've reconciled to create new shared experiences with that person. This rebuilds. You don't have to worry about the crap in the past. You get back together and start building new stuff. And largely the stuff in the past can disappear. You're not going to be able to deconstruct everything each one annoyed the other with, and we have to go through every emotion. No, just move on. I think that's an important thing in life, is move the heck on. Like we're moving on to this podcast.
Now, I think speaking of moving on, we are kind of running short on time.
I said that like 2 minutes ago.
No, I mean, we're okay, but I'm looking at what's left in the notes, and I think we should move on to the part about toxic relationships.
Well, we will, but first we have a special report.
All right, so
North Meaford, Ontario.
We'll do our special report, and then we'll come back to the toxic relationship.
Yes,
so here is your special report from Hypno North, Meaford, Ontario, with roving reporter Brado, who has an important update.
Okay, how are you tonight and that? So I'll say right off the bat, I caught up with Duder and Eddard when they split from me laughing their stupid arses off once I discovered the Great White North Hypnosis Convention was about as seaworthy as the Titanic. So you'll probably recall they took off on Eddard's stupid lawnmower, and I chased after them in my pickup truck, and I finally caught up with the Peckers behind the Red Rooster Diner where they were talking to Billy Dials and that. It was awesome. You should have seen all their stupid faces just gaping in the gapery when I roared in like the Dukes of Effin' Hazzard, crashed right into Eddard's lawnmower and drove it through the wall into the kitchen of the diner. And fortunately, I avoided a murder rap because Eddard and Duder jumped off just in time, and Billy Dials ran up to me yelling a bunch of stuff. So I backed up the Dodge Ram, took another run at it with the Ride a Mower, successfully finishing the job this time by driving it into the dining area, just missing an OPP constable who was having a coffee. So I backed out really fast. You ever want to ram a stupid Ride a Mower through a wall into a restaurant? The Dodge Ram is definitely the way to go. Now, it all ended badly with me punching Billy Dials in the face for good measure, just in case he was in on the $10,000 worth of cheap cigarettes. And then just as the cop came out to see what was happening, Duder fired his .22 caliber pellet gun at my crotch, and the constable saw it and charged him with attempted penicide. And then Eddard tried to reason with the cop and got handcuffed. And best of all, the cop only saw the crashed up Ride-A-Mower in the restaurant and thought those dicks had crashed through the wall with no help from me. So they both locked up now awaiting trial, and I have about 1 million cartons of smokes I found in Eddard's garage. I'm going to sell them to get some of my money back. Might not be able to unload them, but I'll do my best, which is all you can really ask of anyone. So this has been your old pal Brado, bringing you up to date on fake conventions, destroyed diners, and a couple of dicks and their cheap cigarettes up in the Great White North. Oh, and one other thing. I had my iPhone 6 in my hand when I hit Billy Dials in the jaw, and the sickening thing's bitched now. So I had to actually go down in the outhouse and get the old iPhone 4 out of the cesspool pull, and that's what I'm podcasting on again. Fortunately, it still works once I recharged it. So thanks once again. Good night, and get rid of those toxic relationships, but not necessarily the high-speed collision into a small diner.
All right, we are back, and let's talk about toxic relationships.
Well, one final point. One thing for rebuilding relationships, a great place to go is shared funny memories.
Yes, memories.
Go to those funny memories. Focus on those.
That's right.
You'll bring back a lot of the fun back into
Memories
the relationship.
bring back feelings.
Scary thing was Barbara Streisand.
Feelings.
Nothing more than hey.
Hey, all right.
Feelings.
Hey, kids. So we're having fun here. Let's talk about toxic relationships because we've said this on many episodes.
Yes.
But when a relationship is toxic and it ain't going to get better, you got to extract yourself.
You do. And think about it, guys. If you're making the effort to fix something, if you had a falling out with someone, I can think of someone that my wife and I have had a falling out with after 40 years of being friends. And she has just ghosted us for a year and a half, and we wouldn't answer anything. So we just, okay, go. I've learned my lesson.
Bye. Yeah.
You don't waste your time. What about toxic relationships and you want to know whether or not you should disengage? Think about this for a second. A toxic relationship is marked by cycles of destructive behavior, including manipulation, deceit, and disrespect, which consistently leads to emotional turmoil. That's a ChatGPT definition.
Nice.
I asked for 10, and I thought, I said, I'll use the one I like best. Let's hear that again. A toxic relationship is marked by a cycle of destructive behavior, including manipulation, deceit, and disrespect, which consistently leads to emotional turmoil. There's the indicator.
That is
it
a
always
really
dumps
good
into
definition.
emotional turmoil, doesn't it? And such a relationship often leaves one or both individuals feeling trapped, drained, and unfulfilled. If the person is abusive or violent,
No
get
excuse.
out.
Yeah.
Get out.
Fixing that.
It's if women or anyone stuck in a physically abusive relationship. Gavin DeBecker says, you've got to be so careful. Here's a security expert. He said, police can look at the police reports and people who stay with someone who is physically violent. Your chance of it getting really bad and possibly being killed is extremely high compared to the general population.
Yeah.
Get out. Don't get sucked into it.
It's essentially like Russian roulette, it feels like.
Pretty much, yeah. And they're holding the frickin' gun.
Yeah.
So that was a good line. It was a good little point there, wasn't it?
Nice.
Some of the things to watch for. Invalidation. Invalidation is when you're made less of a human being. You say, oh, yeah, well, you're wearing that stupid shirt. You have no idea about style.
Do you remember when we had a conversation a few years ago?
No.
We were both talking about Gary Chapman's book, 5 Love Languages.
Oh, yeah.
And I came up with the idea that let's say your love language is words of affirmation, which my wife, that's one of her major love languages.
Yeah.
So when that is one of your strong love languages,
and the person does the opposite,
like invalidation, that is...
It's a kick to the guts.
It's like an emotional version of physical violence.
Yeah.
It feels really horrible, right? So you invalidate someone who wants validation. Ooh, that's dangerous.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And then manipulation. Anything trying to control people by manipulation is a terrible, terrible thing. Whether it's sulking or temper tantrums or whatever it is to get your way with someone else, that's not a loving relationship. That's very toxic. And of course, an octave of that is blame and scapegoating, where the scapegoat becomes the family garbage dump.
Yeah.
And that scapegoat is always the one blamed. And generally, there's someone who's very dutiful and is baffled as to why this happens. And because people can't deal with their own stuff directly, so they project it onto the scapegoat and attack it.
How do you think someone should deal with that when they sense it starting, so that they don't necessarily give the other person or people a chance to fix their own behavior before they conclude, hey, this is toxic, I got to get the hell out of here.
Well, if it's actual scapegoating, they're not going to see it coming because it will start as a child.
Right.
It will start very
What if
early.
it's just blaming? It's just like,
blaming.
it's all your fault because you X, Y, Z.
I'd be confronting the person very calmly and saying, I noticed that you have this real habit of blaming me for things that you do. You want to explain this to me? Bring it into the light.
Yeah.
And they'll be, well, it's because you always... Well, get out.
Because if you approach it honestly with an attempt to get to an agreement, and the other person is so hot-headed and unwilling to even address the conversation, that probably is a good sign that this isn't going to get fixed.
That's right. And it's hard for people to extract themselves from abusive and toxic relationships. But it's sometimes the best thing to do to preserve your sanity and your own physical health. You see, there's a thing called the cycle of abuse. So the abuser creates tension in the relationship that feels unpleasant. Then they bring it to an incident. They pop the balloon. It's like freak out, or you did this, and a big blow up for 2 hours. Then not talking for 2 days or whatever.
Then we
gradually make up and reconcile. So the person feels good again and is calm. And then the pattern starts again.
Yeah.
This cycle of abuse and then calming down and letting you off the hook and abuse, some people do it habitually.
It creates
a crappy way to live.
Actually, if I think from the hypnosis and, just in influence, etc. If I think about compliance sets, right? This is without a compliance set, just for those listening, is if I tell you, put your feet flat on the ground, take a deep breath, exhale, close your eyes. That's what I might do to set up a compliance set for hypnosis. So you'll do
so
what
they comply,
do
what you say.
This isn't really the same as a compliance set, but the idea that if their pattern is to have the tension, have the incident, have the reconciliation, we are creating like an internal compliance set of, oh, this is the pattern. This is what I do. I just forgive every single time, and it happens over and over again. So it becomes this anchored pattern of behavior.
Right.
And you're now stuck in this trap of dealing with
round and round, the same stupid thing. Yeah. And self-awareness is one of the greatest gifts you can have, to be aware of your own complicity in this sort of thing. So how's your self-worth? I mean, that's the thing. If you're in a toxic relationship, you'll know, because it will be affecting your sense of self, your self-esteem, your self-worth. And we say self-worth versus self-esteem. I think self-worth is the value that you intrinsically have yourself. Self-esteem tends to be more what you're able to do, what your abilities are. You feel good about yourself because you have certain skills.
As opposed to just natural your self-worth.
As opposed to your self-worth.
So you can always have self-worth, even if you're still working on your self-esteem.
Yeah. There's something intrinsically worthwhile about being human. I believe that.
And probably that is the one thing, coming back to that often repeated phrase that I give John Chambers, the former CEO of Cisco Systems, say, these are the things that the company can control and how we did, and these are the things that are outside of the company's control, and this is what happened in the quarter. Similarly here, we can be in control of our own self-worth, right? So we can take ownership of building up our self-worth so that we'll be able to do a better job of presenting ourselves.
No, side loop. Is this Cisco the plumbers of the internet?
Yes, you got it. Yeah.
I did 3 gigs for them.
Oh, yeah.
They hired me to help their recruiting.
Yeah.
Hypnotist to help them recruit. That's a different story.
Yeah.
Now, interesting here, we say you have value irrespective of the other person and their view. Remember, that's what the intrinsic value is. It's nothing to do with them. Now, the good people in your life, this is one of the great keys I found. Someone else said it. I wish I could credit who it was. You can tell if someone's good or bad. I know who it was. It was the health ranger, Mike Adams.
Oh, yeah.
He said, good people empower you and set you free to be your best.
Yeah.
Bad people disempower you and control you. There's your indicator.
Yeah.
If you're having trouble getting up from someone else's control, that's a really bad sign. We all control. We do it in different ways and to different degrees, but it will become toxic to a point, and you'll know when it does. So how do you escape a toxic relationship? Here's some steps. Get a support network of people you trust who know the situation and can support you through it, so you don't stay in something that is definitely a nasty thing. Set up a safe place. Find somewhere you can go to get away from this person. Find somewhere you can go that you can think the stuff through without being under the dominance of a nasty person.
And that can include your support network, right?
Absolutely.
Your support network.
There's a huge overlap here.
You hang out with. Yeah, exactly.
And plan how you're going to exit the relationship. Don't just wait for it to happen. Well, maybe one day it'll blow up and I won't. I'll show him. No.
And it really depends on the kind of relationship we're talking about here, right? If it's a job and you're being harassed or just not respected because you have a boss who's a dick.
Oh, I had that.
You can just quit.
Yeah.
Right?
Red Barn. I was making $1 an hour, working until 3 a.m.
Yeah.
My boss was a dick. I quit.
Yeah. And now if you're in a marriage with kids and something else is going on, it's very complicated. You have to plan more, right?
We have to plan to exit.
We have a lot of friends who have gone through different situations.
Don't wing it when you have a blow up. Think it through. Don't try to wing it. Reestablish your identity outside the relationship. The other person does not decide who you are. Listen to me, guys. The other person in a toxic relationship does not have the right or the power to define who you are. Redefine yourself separate from this nasty relationship.
Oh, I can tell you're serious because you're pointing with a finger.
Yes, I should have done the Disney World one instead, the entire bladed hand.
All right.
Now, moving on. Be aware of red flags in new relationships. We tend to repeat patterns if we're not careful.
Look at their handwriting for felon's clause.
Oh, yeah. And deceit, any of the hell traits. Avoid the old patterns that belong to the toxic relationship.
That's true. So just because you have that memory, look at that, going back to the think tank words, from what you were doing or someone was doing, make sure that you keep in mind, notice how I framed that in the positive, that this is a new person.
Yeah.
This is not the same old person that you dealt with before. You can learn from that one and carry your new self into a new relationship.
That's it.
In whatever form that is. That could be a business partner. That could be a job. That could be a friend group. That could be a romantic partner. Anything.
And start fresh. Take it slowly when you connect with someone new and new friends as you're recovering, whether it's friends or close person, whatever. Focus on people you trust as you're rebuilding your own throttled self-esteem that's being damaged. Get other people who love you and know you and will support you.
I like your last point here.
Go for it. I'll let you say it then.
Avoid wallowing in the past.
Yes.
And then it's called the past because it doesn't exist anymore.
Or anywhere for that matter.
Anymore or anywhere. Yeah.
No, you're right. It's both.
It's a memory. That's all it is.
It's all it is. Just a darn memory. So let us go to the empowering question, Chris. Bring it on.
Right. Here we go. For episode 264, ask yourself, what is the greatest strength I bring to relationships? And what is my blind spot that might actually be problematic if I don't fix it? And who might it be a good idea to reconnect with again?
Excellent. And I've just reconnected with Henry O'Hagan, a friend I have not seen since I was 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Anyway.
Metaphor time.
Here's the metaphor. It's actually a Metafive, so one better. This is the story of Tony. I grew up in Coxwell Danforth area. A lot of Italian kids, really nice. They did great gardens and that. We were in the public school, Earl Beatty. The Italian kids were mostly in the Catholic school, St. Bridget's. And so there was always the rivalry between us and them.
Yep.
But that worst, it was you chase someone down the street. We were nice kids. And I met this new kid, had moved into the neighborhood. His name was Tony. He was a muscular Italian kid with dark hair and wore this sort of green, almost a Spunkaluccio style hat. But he was a nice kid, muscular and strong. And I started hanging out with him. And he was a weird kid in a way because he had taken the solid rubber tire off the front wheel of his tricycle. And he said he did it so he can draw lines in the dirt. So he'd drive through the dirt, like making lines. So I thought it was pretty cool. And I just remember one day, Chris, he said to me, this is weird. This is still affecting me to this day. He said, Mike, I think we're going to be friends for a long time. And I said, yeah. Something happened. We lost track of each other shortly after, and I didn't see him again. Isn't it weird? And that stayed in my mind. Lost relationships, lost friendships.
Oh, man.
Tony's probably out there somewhere. Hope he's listening.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. This is thanks for listening.
Well.
Thanks for listening, old chum. This has been episode 264 of the Brain Software Podcast. As your reminder, before you leave, while you're on YouTube, you may as well hit that subscribe button so you're on our channel. Yes. You may as well click through, if you're watching on YouTube, to the show notes on our website so you can see everything and you can subscribe to our mailing list. Join our free community, the Brain Software community, which is at MikeMandelHypnosis.com/free group. And we haven't said this in a couple of podcasts, so I'll mention that our upcoming class, The Architecture of Hypnosis, the November edition's sold out. Long gone.
It's sold out.
Waiting list. Yes. But the May 2025 class is still filling up. So join. Get your spot.
Now,
come and hang out.
Watch this appeal to scarcity. I did not interrupt you. Remember, guys, we've got May booked. And we're going to do this as long as we can to give this stellar training. But I am 71 now.
All right. Thanks again. We'll see you in the next episode. And good night. Greetings.
I just threw that in now.
I know.
It's like you said. I hope don't look at it. You said I'm not even going to look at it. I did it when
Mike
you got
just
up.
inserted a word that I'm not going to
mind.
actually read. Well, outtakes, man.
No.
I hope Ross gets back to doing some outtakes sometimes.
Doesn't. Ready and action.
Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. We're gonna get back.